welcome to the Out Loud podcast. Today, I'm joined by Chantal Landreville. She is the founder, she's a love coach and the founder of RaiseYourLoveSignal.com. Chantal, thank you for being here. It's really nice to have you.
Thank you, Will, for the opportunity. I'm excited. This is great. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's really nice to chat. We connected before. Where are you? You're in a beautiful place right now. Where is that?
I have the chance to be in Costa Rica, so I'm officially a snowbird because I left January 4th, and I'm still here and won't be back in Toronto, which is home, by May 4th.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how much like looser and more relaxed and happier you must be, with that kind of climate.
Environment.
Yeah, and environment in general. Okay, can you tell me kind of what the daily life is like there?
Well, things are relatively normal here. So people are walking around with their masks, but everything is open. The locals do have certain curfews. They can't drive on certain days.
Hmm.
But I mean, the typical Costa Rican is in bed by 8 o'clock at night and gets up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, which
Hmm.
I've adapted. So I'm up usually by 5:30 in the morning and in bed by 9:30. So
Wow.
it's a very serene environment. There's not much to do, but the nature, the lusciousness of the jungle and having access to the ocean that's so close is really,
Beautiful.
really good
Yeah.
for the sanity and the brain and just for creative juices to work around. So it's been
Sure.
very, very good. I'm
Yeah,
very
I can imagine. That's amazing. And as I told you last time, I'm like jealously living through you right now. It's so awesome. And so, talking about creativity, I want to get into Raise Your Love Signal. But first, I'd love to ask, like, how do you answer the question, what do you do? And what do you say to people?
That's a good question because I'm still practicing on a daily basis my pitch.
Hmm.
But I'm a love coach. Basically, what I do is help people, give them some form of love education. We
Okay.
weren't taught how to love, how to be in relationships. So the program that I've founded, Raise Your Love Signal, has a signature method that we cover three things that will talk about, your want, which is really getting clear on the kind of partner that you want, but also the kind of relationship you want to grow in, especially if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship.
Hmm.
Then we talk about yourself, which is all about you diving deep to the roots, where we basically, what we tend to attract or be in currently is often rooted from our childhood. And
Right.
what kind of, if your parents were in love or not, or if they had a bad
Yeah.
relationship or not. So it's your first example. So I really teach, the being aware of that and knowing where your roots are from. And then you in it is my third chapter, which is really all about being in the relationship. So really educating people on the tools to make sure that you're in a successful relationship, because it's one thing to attract the right partner. It doesn't mean that it's going to get easy.
Right.
Relationships are a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
full-time job. I keep
Yeah.
saying, if you don't perform on a daily basis, it's trouble written all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I've done. So my passion and my purpose is to help educate people on love social skills.
I really like that, and I like the way that you say, like, we weren't taught that, because there are so many great business people that I'm meeting, like you and like a lot of the people, we're part of this mutual accelerator called Dent KPI,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting to meet people who have kind of figured out, because they're all service-based entrepreneurs. All of these entrepreneurs that we're working with their product is kind of helping people and selling some kind of coaching or educational or implementation service. And a lot of them say the same thing, and I see myself in that way. There's a gap in the market. There's a gap in our basic education about these super important things. And people talk about this all the time. Like, we don't learn taxes in school. We don't learn public speaking, communication skills properly, which is where I come in. And yeah, we don't learn how to be in a loving, committed relationship, and what that takes. And if your only model is your parents, well, that can be great, but that can also be really messed up. So,
Exactly.
and I've found through my therapy and my own work on my relationship how much of my parents I've downloaded and either copied or like tried to shy away from. And so, for example, my parents got divorced when I was 15. And so I am realizing what that's done to me as a partner.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
like, what do you, okay, so what do you tell someone whose parents, I mean, I'm sure it's different for everybody,
Mhm.
but are there any patterns you notice with children of divorce and how they act in relationships?
Absolutely, because oftentimes you're dealing with abandonment. It's a subconscious, right? It's something that you've decided as a little boy or a little girl when you were 3, 4, depending on when the trauma happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, trauma can be as simple as you're asking your father or your mother to look at your drawing, and they're like, "We don't have time right now. We're busy." You come back from work, and this just registers and builds and creates either a sentiment of abandonment
Uh-huh.
or not showing up. So I always say when we go through this, it's like there's a difference between what you want, what you attract, and what is right for you.
Mm,
And the subconscious mind often tends to attract what is not right for you because it's if you haven't done therapy and all the digging, I didn't even realize half of the stuff I was doing myself until I went into therapy very
right.
later in life,
Yeah.
and finally said, "Wow, this is unbelievable." So to go back to your point, it's like the fact that they don't even take the time to teach this at a younger age.
Yeah.
My God, it would help. You talk about mental health, it would all help us instead
For
of having
sure.
like breakdowns and life crisis or midlife crisis that we all tend to experience in our late 30s, 40s, or 50s.
Right.
So
Without
I,
having done that work either with somebody like yourself or work in therapy. And I think what I like about what you're offering as well is that if you go to therapy, there's a whole range of things you can kind of focus on: your relationship, your work, yourself, your relationship to yourself, your self-worth. But what you're doing is so focused on relationships. And that to me is one of the biggest investments you can make
yes.
in your happiness is a successful relationship. And so, yeah, do you want to talk about how you got focused on relationships? Did you ever do something else? And how did you get to doing relationship coaching?
So that's also a good question. Thank you, Will. So I've actually always been fascinated with love, dating, and relationships since my early 20s. I remember a girlfriend and I were working on creating a documentary to teach people and educate people. So it's always been something in the back burner for me that I
Mm,
wanted to explore and do on a serious level. I just couldn't put it together
right.
until recently. And through my own journey, I was a single girl for over 15 years and have went through the trials of tribulations of being rejected, just attracting the wrong men,
Mm,
non-emotional available men. And the one thing that saved me through my journey was I was very curious. I always was very involved in self-development. So I did the work through the years. So I would say over 15 years, there's not much that I haven't read, haven't done, haven't tried, haven't experienced.
yeah.
So
Qualified by experience. Yeah, I feel the same
exactly.
way. Yeah.
And it's paid off because I'm now in a very healthy, committed relationship.
That's
2 years
great.
ago, I met my magical unicorn, as I love to call him.
Yeah.
But it came with a lot of work, and I think COVID propelled a lot of things for a lot of people. For me,
Yeah.
in my case, because my regular work, I've been in the industry of the wine, and I've been in the wine industry for more than 20 years.
Hmm.
I was traveling every other week, so all of a sudden I have all this free time. I'm stuck at home, and I was just like, this is the time for me to give back to community, and this is something I know a lot of.
Yeah.
And KPI kind of came and propelled the whole project, and
That's great. Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like the vision came together, the signature method came together, and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. It is
Yeah.
needed out there. Not a Nobody can say that they're not interested in talking about love in one shape, form, or way, right?
For
We all
sure.
need love. We're all deserving of love. We've all been hurt by love. We've all been, but it's a love-hate relationship basically.
Yeah.
But we all need it. We need it. We're, as a human being, we're not meant to live alone. It's
Yeah.
just like, and we see it now with COVID, how it's
Yeah.
like, having such a huge effect on mental health for so many people, because we're meant to be in community and take
Yeah.
care of one another. And
Isolation is really hard. And I'm sure you felt this too. I was single for a long time as well. Like I'm trying to think this sort of time frame, but basically from like my 22 to like 20 9 essentially. I mean, I had some relationships, but not like very committed, serious ones. And the time of that, like the loneliness, the isolation, the feeling of not being able to just like share my experiences with another person in that intimate way. Yeah, it built up a lot of just yeah, depression and anxiety. And it's not that that was the cause of that. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, once I started working on myself, I found my now fiance, and I think I was ready to find her and ready to be in that relationship with her. But if I but I had to do the work being single, but the work was really difficult. And still now, having her, especially during COVID, to be able to talk to be able to spend time with, just touch. Like, I was talking to a single friend of mine. He's like, he had a girl over a while ago, and he's like, just to touch someone, like
Oh
just to
yeah.
physically feel another human being in your bed. Like,
Yes.
my
Yes.
God, he's like, I couldn't believe how starving I was for that, and I think that's really, really, yeah, it's so fundamental to who we are as a species. And so I'm interested though in this one thing, is that I think sometimes there's a debate, right? There's some people who are like, single and proud, or like, you don't need somebody to be happy. And then there's the people who are like, committed relationships is the way. How do you see that debate? How do you kind of answer that if people have questions? I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that idea.
I don't think that there's a right and there's a wrong. I think whatever is right for you is what matters. So even, we were raised and thought to be in a specific way, right? Like
Hmm.
we talk about, we were, especially our generation, it's like, okay, go to school, get your university degree, get married, have kids, buy the white picket fence.
Yeah.
And it's not meant for everybody. I never felt fit in that mold, so I struggle with it because
Yeah.
it was the world. So I say to people, as long as you meet, in this case, if you want to be in a relationship, yeah, as long as you meet the person that wants the same things as you do, it's fine. And I always give
Hmm.
the example. A lot of people now, especially later in our age group, they don't want to live together, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
because what society said, that we had to be together forever in the same house to have a nice healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So I really don't think that there's a wrong or a right. It's
Right.
really about what you are, and um
And
that's
yeah, and I guess different people need different levels of like space, or comfort, and I imagine there's like a trade-off there. Obviously, like if you're more, let's say, if you value your time alone, if you value your personal possessions, if you value your space, then maybe you're not going to want somebody as up in
no,
your
you don't
house and
want
up in your
somebody that's
face.
dependent, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you need to find the right match. In my case, I'm a butterfly. I need freedom. I'm
Yeah.
like, I love my time alone. I'm a huge extrovert, but I'm also an introvert.
Hmm.
So it's great because Jeff and I are very independent of one another.
Mm.
We love to be apart, even though we'll give it, or in the same place, we'll like have our own individual spaces. But when we come together, it's come together. So, but that doesn't mean 24/7. So it
Yeah.
really depends on the person. And as I said, it's important to find the fit that wants and thinks exactly like you do,
Right.
to make sure that it doesn't cause friction or resentment or any other problems that can
Right.
surface.
And so do you have like a sort of template of types of people, and which matches well, kind of like, I teach like a version of sort of the disc model, like the dominant personality and the sort of conscientious personality. I have my own kind of framework for that, of different communication styles. Do
Mhm.
you have a framework of types, or how are the ways that you kind of break down how you should figure out about yourself, or who you should look for?
Well, the first thing that I do is make them get clear on their vision and their
Okay.
wants of the relationship and their partner, because everybody thinks they know what they want, and it's really easy to say, yeah, of course, I want somebody that's going to make me laugh. I want somebody that's financially secure. I want,
Mm.
I want, I want, I want, I want. But and they attach it to the actual person.
Mm.
But then it's like, how do you want to grow into your relationship and evolve, and what
Right.
are your needs to grow as a couple? Because I say, a really healthy relationship for me is how you take care of one another. How do you
Mm.
speak
Yeah.
each other's languages? There needs to be like tenderness and care to one another. So I start by there because they realize when they do this exercise, one, I really don't know what I need and what I want. And there's
Yeah.
a difference between the wants and the needs. And
Yeah.
then when we go work into the roots of all the behaviors in the past limiting beliefs, the one thing that comes up is, who do you need to be to want and receive your needs in the relationship?
Right.
And that for me is very, very, that's where I stand out and make people realize, wow, okay, because you might want, need, and as I say, the subconscious mind, you know, will attract certain things that,
Hmm.
or you could, for example, you could not feel worthy of love. You could be have your
Right.
vision down, but you don't feel worthy of receiving it. So
Hmm.
the problem is actually you have
Yeah.
to work on figuring out why you're not deserving of love, and where is that rooted from. So
Yeah.
we dive deep. So I would say it's very individual.
Right.
I haven't broken it down by like
Well,
but I
yeah,
do.
nobody is, yeah, and nobody is like one type. Like I always tell people when I go through my sort of types of audience members, I go, nobody is all this one thing. There might be people who don't even fit this mold, and we can be different things on different days to different people. So those types too can definitely be over subscribed to. I just recently read an article about Myers-Briggs,
Yes.
and the person reading the article was like, how did two people who had like no real psychological credentials create this personality profile that like everybody uses now, and
Yeah,
it's so popular?
it
And
is.
you're on Tinder and somebody's like, I am an ENTFJIP, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, it's such a funny thing. But I like the approach of the individual, and I really like what you said too about taking responsibility for figuring out your own thing. And that's what I learned being in a relationship, and just in general, about all relationships. The more you can stop and think, okay, what can I do differently
Mhm.
to make this successful, and stop wishing that the other person would change their behavior, or even worse, change who they are. I got in a lot of trouble early on in my relationship because you talk about speaking different languages.
Yes.
My fiance was really shy with my friends and family. And I was like, what the hell? Why can't you be more outgoing and warm to them, and like, you must not care? And I like, brought it up with her, and she was really upset. She's like, I'm doing my best. And I discovered she has like she's really introverted, and she has shyness issues, and it was nothing personal. But
Yeah.
what I had to do was, instead of expecting her to be different than who she is, and to get over, quote unquote, some of these things that she has in her
Yeah.
past, that's her job. My job is to let her be who she is and not take it personally.
Yeah.
And because the more that I criticize or want her to be different or expect her to be different, that's just pain and suffering and fighting and conflict.
And it will only build up, and it's the acceptance of other, and really from A to Z, the good and the bad. It's like you
Yeah.
don't want to be criticized and change and say do this or do that, right? So that's I would say is, and I'm happy you know that and you've realized that
Yeah.
because it's
I sorry to cut you off.
no, it's key. And I recently read a book that's called Attached, and I strongly recommend it because it's all about the attachment style that we have, which is rooted back again to your childhood and
Right.
how you were raised and your needs subconsciously. And you talk about exactly what the example that you gave. And I mean, I don't know your past and how you were raised and stuff, but the for you, your partner not showing up like that triggered you. And so it could be related to your attachment style, where
Yeah.
hers is
Right.
different. She shows up in different ways. So it's such there's such great insight out there. And
Cool.
the whole purpose of this is to be able to educate and share knowledge and
Yeah.
connect people to the right channels when they're going through this. And
Right.
hopefully, everybody can be in better, healthier relationships, would actually make also better kids. The kids
Totally.
tend to suffer so much because it's the circle that never finishes, from family to family, from generations to, so they keep repeating the pattern.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you really, I'm thinking about that. We're kind of on the cusp of starting to have children. Like, we don't have any kids yet. We've got the dog that we treat like a kid because, I'm at that stage in my life where I need a baby, and all I have is this dog. I don't know what it's called.
that's waiting
So
you
yeah,
very anxiously to
yeah, yeah,
take over.
exactly. So I like the other day, my fiance called me. I was singing a lullaby to my dog, and she's like, "Jesus Christ, you need a baby. This is ridiculous." And I was like, you know, but so my big thing too about my childhood is also like, um, you know, and my parents were awesome parents, and they were great, but they weren't very compatible with each other. They lasted a long time. They were together for 28 years before they divorced, which is
Wow.
crazy, right? Like, to
Yeah.
to to last that long and then not make it. And the model that I saw was like a lot of fighting, a lot of like not a lot of compatibility, not a lot of like mutual love and support. Even though there was a lot of love towards us as kids, but with each other. And
Yes.
so I now think about like, what do I want to pass on? What do I want to model for the kids? Um, so like, do you have any advice for couples who are about to have kids or who have young children? Like, what are the best behaviors to model for them, or how do you think about that, and how do you give advice about that?
So, a couple things. First of all, I say that it's really important as a conversation as a couple in your relationship on what are the values you want to mutually share and bring to your children, and how do you see yourself raising them? Because I hear this so many times in failed. It's just they didn't have the same vision on how they wanted the kids to be raised or treated, or I don't know if they have a health issue or a school issue. It's like what's good, what's bad, right? I mean, there's always the good
Yeah,
and the bad parents, and there needs a balance. But I think when you don't take the time to have that discussion on how you're going to it's a little bit like the long-term vision of the relationship. how
right.
how kids are going to stick around. You'll have them forever, and you'll be, whether the relationship works out or not, you'll be tied to the hip forever because of your
Yeah,
children. So
right.
I say that you need to have these conversations and dive deep. And I would definitely advise to read that book, Attached. It's amazing.
What's the author's name?
Oh my God. I'll have to get
It's
back to you.
okay. I'll Google it real quick.
I'm so bad with names.
Attached.
Attached.
It's okay. I do the same thing, and I never remember the name or something, and then I just Google it while while I'm talking. Attached.
It's a hot book right now, so I'm sure you won't have any problems finding it.
Is it Amir Levine and Rachel
Yes,
SF Heller? Okay, good.
correct, correct, correct. Levine,
Amir
yes.
Levine and Rachel SF Heller.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Attached.
amazing
And
book.
I can link it. I'll link that recommendation under this video so people can find it.
Oh,
I
that's a
think
great
my
idea.
therapist told me about it as well, as like a great way of understanding, yeah, how your childhood affects. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, because if you understand it, you'll know how to behave and act as your child. Now, the thing is, as a child, when you're born into this world, you're free. You're like, you have no emotion, nothing. Everything you'll be experiencing everything is a first, right?
Yeah.
So knowing this kind of information, you realize as an adult, everything I say and do to my child between the age of 0 and 7 is the most important and critical time, because everything that builds up in their subconscious mind by the time they're 8 will be how they develop their belief systems for later in life.
Wow, that's so intimidating. Like,
And
as a parent, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. I don't have kids, and I have to say,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, me neither. I don't even have kids yet, but just the thought of that you have this like 8-year period where everything you do is like cementing into the
yes,
head as
yes.
so into their
So,
development.
no pressure,
Yeah.
right? But I think if you're aware of it and it's knowledge, right? I always say
Right.
it's nothing will, there's no perfect parent.
Yeah, you're
Nobody
gonna
is
screw up,
perfect.
you're gonna make mistakes, and
Exactly.
that's, yeah, normal.
But being aware and giving love. Love is, honestly, it sounds tacky, it sounds stereotype, but it is the most important thing. As long as the child always feels safe and loved
Hmm.
and listened to, I would say, right? It's like
Safe,
they
loved,
always,
and listened
everything
to.
they
Yeah.
do is for attention, and they just want, and especially a child, their first love is their father and their mother.
Yeah.
So they're just like, ah. So that's the advice that I would give.
That's great. And that does make me feel better too. Just boiling it down to some things is really great. I mean, like what I tell people, it's slightly lower stakes, but when you're giving a presentation, you only have to really think about two things, which is to make your audience understand and make them care. And
Mhm.
what those boiling down to the essentials, what that does is that it allows you to let go of like, did I do this perfectly? Did I do that thing perfectly? Did I stumble over my words? Did I make this mistake? Did I forget this slide? Did I forget this name, statistic?
Right.
And just focus on the core of what's really important. And I really like the idea of if the kid feels loved, safe, and listened to, you've done your job. And then you can kind of
Absolutely.
relax about like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't have given them that that toy, or maybe I shouldn't have let them watch that scary movie. But like, in general, it's like,
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
you're fine.
Agreed.
Chantal, there's so much more we could talk about. I'm so sorry that we only had half an hour today, but I'd love to bring you back for a part two, and especially discuss communication styles in
Yeah.
relationships, and also how you and also how you look at friends, each other's friends, and talking to each other's friends and all that stuff. Because to me, that's a whole minefield that I'm learning how to navigate.
Yes. And I love
So
that.
yeah, if you can come back for a part two, I think we should definitely do that and do a part two of this if you're interested.
Yes. Count me
Okay,
in. I love
amazing.
it.
And
Yeah.
so people can find you at raiseyourlovesignal.com. That's right.
Yes. Or on my Instagram at Raise Your Love Signal.
Okay.
And I'm just finishing now a 12-week program that's been amazing. I've been getting so much great feedback that I actually have to sit down and put another date on for the end of May.
Congrats.
So
That's awesome.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'll also, if you can send me the links, I'll also post links to all your Instagram pages,
Amazing.
LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it is that you have, and your courses as well.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chantal. It's really nice to see you. Enjoy the 30-degree weather.
I will enjoy the walk with the dog.
I will. It's sunny at least, even though it's like -5. So that's
That's good.
that's the
That's
key.
good.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.